Hi, this is Jeff Calaguar. It's Tuesday afternoon and I am in my living room because I wanted to share with you something that I believe might be helpful in your own growth, in your life, in your leadership, and maybe even in your livelihood. And it is 3 keys to bridging the gap. And what I mean by gap is it's the space between where you are now in doing what you do, really to the place where you're living freely in your destiny, where you're actually doing something that is fully you, where you're flying, where you're free, where you're actually caring about what you do, loving life, and is what I believe that we're all called to live into. But there are 3 keys that can help us evaluate, am I moving in that direction or am I moving away? So let me share those things with you and maybe they'll be helpful to you. The first thing is to ask yourself, am I living out of my authentic voice? And what I mean by that is, do you ever find yourself in an environment where you feel like you've got to try to be someone you're not, and you put on a voice? I was a pastor, and there were times where I felt like I had to put on like a pastor voice. Or I've been in environments where I was with pro athletes, and I had to be like this cool person who acted like them, even though I never played pro sports. And you feel like, you know what, I'm just not being me. And in an age where we've realized that authenticity is really important, that becomes important for our own growth, to start realizing, what does it look like for me to speak authentically out of my own voice in every environment? To be true to myself, to know myself and start knowing what is my voice and how do I know when I'm using it and when I'm trying to be something I'm not. And my belief is that the more you get free to really understand your voice and get free to speak that more and more authoritatively and out of truth and out of caring, the more you'll find you're bridging the gap and becoming who you really want to be. The second thing relates to that in bridging the gap, and that's your inner voice. It's the words that you're sharing to yourself. I know I've really become expert at this at times, of knowing how to say very unloving, very uncaring words about Jeff Calaguar. I know what it's like to say things that I would never say to somebody else that I've said to myself. And start to understand what is the voice, what are the words that I'm telling myself? Am I encouraging? Am I loving? Am I hopeful? And the more I can start hearing my own self-talk, the more I can start saying, nope, you know what? That's not true. I don't buy that. That's part of growing up, and I'm 50 years old, and I started to realize, you know what? I'm going to start loving me. Jesus talked about love your neighbor as you love yourself. That means loving ourselves is really an important maturity thing. And one of the most mature things that we can do sometimes is actually speak words of love and affirmation and hope to ourselves in a voice that cares. So, understanding, how can I bridge the gap and start hearing myself? If I treat myself well, how might that affect the way I treat others? The third thing in bridging the gap is the vision. It's a vision of really, what does it look like to be you, fully operating in your strengths, fully being free to know what you're great at, not apologizing for that, and doing that more and more, knowing what to say no to, and also having a vision of really being passionate about what you do. Especially in your work or in your leadership, your passion is probably the most important thing that you bring. And yet, a lot of us don't spend time nurturing and growing our own passion. And that may mean you need education, you need to read books, you need coaching, you need things that are going to nurture and draw out and make you and help you be fully passionate. As you do that, you're going to start to find yourself actually helping other people become passionate. And isn't it true that people who lead or people who sell, who love what they do and are passionate, actually do well? And yet, most of us didn't get education in those things. So my encouragement is, what would it look like to ask yourself and even draw a picture? What does it look like for me to live into the vision of being fully me. Those three things I just wanted to share with you and have you evaluate, maybe even do a 1 to 10. Am I living into my authentic voice? Am I living into an inner voice that I really would want to speak to others? And then the third, am I living out that vision? Those three things can help you bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to go. And I know that doesn't happen overnight, but my belief is with some focus and with some attention, you'd be surprised at how far, how quickly you can come. My hope is that you get to live in that and live out of convergence of being who you are, doing what you do best in the place you do it. Don't settle for anything less. It's really, your life is too short to settle for anything less. So when you see yourself being held back in your voice, in your inner voice, and in your vision, ask those three questions and move towards the real you. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this. God bless you.